And the national anthem. Okay. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. And we will move on to roll call.
Cheryl Massaro.
Sally Hunt.
Christy Chung.
Will Furry.
Conklin.
LaShaka Moore.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're going to move down to adoption of agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda today?
Yes, I do ask that we move 9.01, which is the Neola presentation, up after public comment, and to follow that, 12.01, the legislative platform discussion, and then follow regular order.
Okay, very good. Okay. So I'd like a motion to adopt the modified agenda.
Move approval.
And a second.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Chong and a second by Ms. Hunt. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, passes unanimously. Okay, so we will move on now to public comment. Do we have anybody scheduled for public comment today?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
John Potts.
Well, yeah, come forward, have a seat here. Like Mr. Potts, welcome.
Hi, I'm John Potts. Marshall is my son back here. He's in Project Search this year. I'm kind of wondering, you know, the school is doing a good job with inclusion, but when I'm looking for jobs for him, he'll be aged out in March, this coming March. So that's kind of worrisome for me. He tried Publix, and Publix kind of didn't work out, but now he's going to a hospital, Advent, and I'm hoping that he finds something there. If he doesn't, I'm wondering, you know, the county's coming along pretty good, but I'm wondering if you know, when he gets past, when he times out, what is going to be his options here? And I don't really see the state and the city and the county actually having many jobs for some of these children, and I'm wondering, you know, why? They talk a good job, you know, about inclusion. They're doing fairly well, but I don't see that coming over into the city, county, and state. And I was just wondering why. And I know all you people are a lot of intelligent, compassionate people, and figured that you could find out some answers on why that's not happening. And that's pretty much all I have to say, other than from the time my son started third grade here, we've, as a county, came a tremendous way with these children. And I just hope it persists. And that's pretty much all I got to say.
Well, thank you for sharing your thoughts on that, sir.
Thank you.
And,
Thanks for being an awesome dad.
yes.
I try.
And Superintendent Moore, if staff has any resources that we can you please send them that
Yep,
way?
we'll
Okay.
definitely,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And for those who may not know the rules of engagement, do we want to just review that so that people understand how, if they come for public comment, they do want to engage in conversation?
Yeah, so when we do have public comment, we want to hear everything you have to say, and those comments should be directed to myself as the chair and not to call out any individual board member. And we do take note of everything that is said here, and staff will follow up with those comments. But while we're at the board meeting, we don't directly respond to those. So it's not to say that we don't hear you or we don't have any interest in that. It's just that that's the function of our meeting. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Jen Thornton.
Jen Thornton, okay, yes.
One more.
Please come forward.
Jen Thornton, and her topic is EKG and physicals.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi, Ms. Thornton,
Good afternoon.
welcome.
Approximately 40,000 babies are born in the U.S. with congenital heart disease, also known as CHD. That equates to one child every 15 minutes. CHD is the most common birth defect and also the leading cause of death in infants and children. My son Cooper was diagnosed with CHD at 17 months old when he was in heart failure. Cooper took his first steps at 10 months. After that milestone, he couldn't stand again. He had many tests and saw numerous doctors. It wasn't until a doctor from Spain evaluated Cooper and immediately ordered an EKG and echocardiogram. When the cardiologist came in with the results, she told me to sit down. She told me she has never seen a child with this type of heart condition live as long as he has without any surgical intervention. She said surgery was going to be extremely risky and complicated. Cooper's heart valves were malformed and didn't function. Over the last 13 years, Cooper has had 9 open heart surgeries. He has 2 mechanical valves and he's on a daily blood thinner. If Cooper were to walk in here right now, you'd never know by looking at him. On the outside, he looks like your average 14-year-old young man. But if he were to take his shirt off, you would immediately see his zipper scar that shows his years and years of bravery. I share the story with you today because if it wasn't for that doctor ordering that EKG along with the echo, I'd be telling you a very different story. We are at a time when technology has advanced when we can be proactive and we can do EKGs and even echocardiograms on infants and children. We can find these underlying heart conditions before children go into heart failure or die. This should be the standard of care yearly for every child that wants to play sports. I hope you consider making the standard of care for our athletic physicals in Flagler County. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
That concludes all that signed up for public comment.
Okay. All right, so we will then now close public comment and move forward with our modified agenda to 9.01. This is the Neola contracts, and Ms. Moore.
Yes, and I do have a guest that we could invite to come up to share as well, which is Ms. Annette Martin's son with Neola.
Welcome, Ms. Martinson.
Hi, everyone. I recognize some of your faces for the meeting.
Go ahead.
Well, I am here at the request of your superintendent, and I think that you all know what Neola is, but I will, speak to you about it today. We are a single source organization. All we do is work on policies, procedures, and bylaws. And what we do is, for example, if we would come here, we would work with your staff and we'd bring your policy manual up to date. How do we do that? Well, we work very closely with the legislature. After the legislative sessions, we work with, I think you know Carrie Harmon from Spiffman and Spellman. There are Florida representatives, and then we have people in Washington, D.C., a law firm, and we gather the information and we develop templates. Now, some of the templates are already in place in manuals, so that is when we do an update. But the first step to this process is bringing your manual up to date. And there's one thing that we must have, is that you must agree to change to our numbering system. and you ask why, because that's how we update the policy. We can't have all the different 1,500 clients having different policy numbers. So we have, that is our holy grail in updating all of the manuals. And what I would say to you is, it's a year-long process, and we need a point person, and we work very closely with them. And how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And that's what this takes. It takes a commitment to work with us, and we work very closely to your project manager, and we work with your staff. And it takes about, many times we start with the board members so that you can see what the staff is going to go through. And we'll go through all the bylaws. And prior to that, we run a codification where we run your policies against our templates so we can see how they match up. And let's say you have one that you all work very hard on, like parades. We don't have a parade policy. We can put that in your manual because it is your manual. All these templates can be adjusted to Flaglerize them for, a very casual term, but we have that, you have that capability. We have templates that are very specific off the top of my head, but they're different, like cell phones. How do you all handle cell phones? Do you issue a phone to your administrators, or do you give them a supplement? Well, that would take two different policies. The policies are divided into books, and it's a file, like for administration is the 1,000s, and then we have a 3,000s for instruction, 4,000s for support. So it's divided up into each section with one topic. That's the key and the difference between a procedure. A policy has one topic, and that's the school boards. They vote on those policies. The procedures are how you get the job done, and that's the superintendent's. So what I would say to you is, we just had an update, legislature just met, and we had 67 policies that had to be updated. And in that 67, our clients got things about AI, the new chaplain, progressive discipline when all the doors aren't locked. All those pieces are already in the template, and they're out to our clients. And if you're not looking at policy and probably every other meeting, you just get further and further behind. It's a legal world out there, and all we do is provide the update information for you and work with your staff to keep your, once it's up to date, keep it in compliance. So I don't know if it's anything else I can, that's sort of in a nutshell. I see you all, and I've seen you at the School Board Association meetings, and what I would say, if you have any of your colleagues that have us as a client, that's how we usually, we get in the door with people, is your colleagues have said, we have Neola, because it's not as painful keeping that manual. And your attorney will probably say, talk to your attorney about Neola, because this is all we do. We write policy all day, and we keep your manuals up to date.
And so you guys have the information. I know this has been an ongoing discussion. Just for the benefit of the public, there are some questions that come up about what the cost would be. The $29,830 is for us to go over to Neola. That is a one-time cost. That is not something that we would pay annually. We would pay $29,830 in order for us to move into Neola. Yearly, we would pay $795 for an annual maintenance fee. All of this is in the document. And then we would also pay $1,780 for updates. However, that being said, 2 updates are within our contract automatically that we do not pay for at all. So the update that Ms. Martinson just referred to, that update would be a part of the annual updates that we would receive. Of course, all of the policies are your policies, and so it's a template that they provide, but you will have the autonomy to make adjustments to those templates so that they meet the needs that you have identified here in Flagler County. So that's all of the information we have, but we want to open it up to you if you have any questions. If you don't, we will move forward with bringing forward to you a contract, as well as behind that contract will follow a PO in order to get this process started. As Ms. Martins has said, this would take us about a year to be fully moved over. We would begin working on adjusting the policies throughout the year, and then we would come before you in order to advertise and then adopt the new policies and at one time. So the old policies would sunset, new policies will come on, but it's going to take us a few months in order to get there.
If I could just interject, what we do is, I'm just going to use the one in administration, instructional and support. When we worked with your staff and we had those ready, we would do a workshop with you. So you're not getting, 500 policies at one time. We do it in chunks. We'd sit down, they'd provide them to you before, you'd look over them. We would come back in and then we would talk about them with you. And then at the very end, you give the staff permission to advertise, and they have to advertise for so long. And then you would vote at the end of the process. But we do chunks because there's a lot of information. And so I didn't want you thinking about 500 policies.
Right.
I just have a really quick question. For maybe a more holistic look at the price structure, if we are completely changing over the numbering system, where would we find, like in your operations, manuals, materials, where like policies are being referenced? Like what does the workload look like for that of getting just, I don't know, like where it's all written, but I imagine there are policies that are being referred to in your district's materials.
Absolutely.
We use board docs, and
Okay.
you all, and so everything is housed on board docs. So if you wanted to see a policy, you would go on, and then there's a search at the top of the screen for a word, or you could see each of the subsections. And is that what you're
I think what
talking
I'm saying
about?
is, let's say there's new teacher onboarding.
Okay.
And in those onboarding documents, 4 different policies are referenced. Those are now going to be new
So
numbers.
they would work with us in order to also develop procedures and forms in order to meet the policy that the board has adopted. So that would be all a part of the work that we would be doing over the course of the year, is making sure that all of our procedures and forms would then reference the new policies.
Yeah.
First we do the policies, and then once we finish the policies, we start on the procedures. What we find is a lot of districts, they become training documents when we have a new administrator, new whomever, whatever group it is in the district. But it is, I just didn't want to mislead you. The procedures happen after we develop the policy.
I just didn't know if that was a heavy lift.
It is.
How many, as far as like the total cost, I like to always think about labor
Yeah.
also in that, right? And so, is that your team doing that? Is that your team doing that? Like, who's transitioning all of that over?
Our team, once let's just say we worked on some templates with your HR department. And because they're working on templates, we send them into we have a production department. They clean up the document so you see a clean document. From that point on, we will not touch that. Once you vote on it, it's your policy. So we have to show everything we do to that policy in strikes or additions, and you will see all of it. It is a lot of work because your staff has a job that they do every day. Right now, they're out doing their staff, and then they're going to take on this policy project. But it's really important that you have your policy manual up to date. So we will work with them. We come up, I usually come up 2 days a month, and I'll work with your project manager. We'll say, everyone, have 10 policies ready because Neola's coming in. We meet with them, we go over the policy, make sure they haven't changed anything that's in statute or anything, and then once they're done, we put them in a revised section, and then once we have enough policies completed, we send it to our production department. They clean it. Let's say we have the 1, 3s, and 4s done, and then we'll talk to the superintendent and project manager and say, we're ready to meet with the school board so we can review this part of it with them. And then we set those aside, and we're still working on the others. So 2 days, 3 days a month, we come in and we work directly with the staff on the new policies, and it is a big job, but it's a very important job.
Sure.
To keep us, in compliance with what's happening in not only the state, but in the nation.
So yearly, as statutes change or whatever, you guys will.
Yeah, I will tell you off, typically, we have 2 updates in a calendar year, and sometimes, like in March, we have a special update, because we all know what happened with Title IX, and we're in a holding pattern. So our clients have, it's 2266, but we've already written a template, 2264, so once everything happens, people can consider, and we've let our people know, like on our 2266, you've got to keep this policy in your manual, because if someone makes an allegation by a certain date, by August 1, you need to use that policy. So we educate everyone on the process, and what we do is when we do this update, we give you all, well, your staff member will give you a document, and it's going to show you every policy and the why. Why are we changing this policy? It's all, and sometimes it's a technical change, a legal reference change. But sometimes it's like with the safety and security now, they have progressive discipline in it. If the doors aren't kept locked, that's in there. So it just depends what the legislature did on that explanation, but you will get that. You're not going to have to say, why am I seeing this one again? You're going to know.
I like the idea of just being able to look over all of our policies, because I don't think we've really had a chance to do that.
Now, is this going to touch all of our policies, every single one of them?
It's either all or none
Right,
for us,
okay.
because we've got to have, and I use that parade as an example number. We will number that one, so it's in your, you're going to have one policy manual.
So, and are we going to be looking at, for some redundancy and for policies that no longer really apply, to clean that library up a policy?
We'll go through every one of them.
Okay.
And the first thing is the codification, where we compare, and then we will start going through each, and your project manager is going to assign people. Okay, this is HR, but it's really finance too. So 2 departments may need to look at that template. And yes, it'll be a brand new manual, because it'll be all reorganized.
And will we still be using the board docs? Is that where it's all uploaded into? Okay. And then the original, the upfront service price that you have here, that is for this initial big lift, right? And then the ongoing annual, it says $795, and then what is the $1780?
Those are the updates.
Is that like a block of updates, or is it how many policies?
Well, it just depends on what the legislature does.
Oh.
But this last time, when we did an update that came out in June, there were 67 policies. There were administrative procedures. There were new forms. We do everything that connected to what the legislature did. We update all the documents.
So whether it's 3 or 67, it's all encompassed in that 1780 per
Right.
year?
And
Okay.
I mean, I've been with Neola for 4 years, and it's not ever been under
Sure, yeah.
40.
Right. Right. So that just kind of, so we know exactly what
Yes.
it's going to be every year, no matter what happens up in the legislature. That's what
Right.
we are budgeting.
If there's 100 policies
It's
needing, it's still the same
The same,
price.
okay. And within this service price that you put together, was this something that was designed specifically for Flagler schools based on the scope of work?
What happens is that price is based on your student base. How many students you have.
Okay, so it's a matter of fact price, so it's not, there won't be necessarily any additional billing outside of the.
No.
Here, this is, everything is included in that
Well, I
number.
mean, there's, like, if a associate travels, their expenses or something like that.
Okay,
But no, it doesn't matter how big it is, the update is, that is the price. Like we have, we have districts your size, but we also have Miami-Dade.
Mhm.
They pay a different price.
Sure. I'm sure they do. And then what reassurance do we have as a district? When we're now relying on Neola to write these policies, and if we were ever challenged on a policy?
Thank you. We will work with, like, if one of our policies are challenged, our attorneys will work with your attorney and making, and assisting them. That is, I'm not saying they're going to do all the work, but they're certainly confer with them. Terry Harmon is one of our attorneys, so he can speak more to that if you want more information. But yes, we ensure our policies and.
Does that mean monetarily? Do you provide? No? So if the policy is challenged and it's found that it's flawed in some way, what is?
I can just tell you that I know that's never happened because we live by our reputation. Our policies are our reputation. And we provide you with our legal support, and our legal support would talk to your legal support, and we've not ever had that happen. I'm not saying it could never happen, but I can just tell you in my time that this is what we do.
Mm-hmm.
We hot link every statute onto our templates so that your people can see right where the words come from. So I don't believe that would, I don't think that's going to happen. It hasn't happened in my tenure with Neola.
Okay. And right now we are using, is it through NEFEC?
Mm-hmm.
And what is our big benefit of going this route versus staying with the NEFEC?
I think the benefit is really the support that will be provided to staff, not just in policy, but in policy, procedure, and in forms. I think that's a huge benefit, as well as keeping our policy, keeping the manual up to date, not just from legislation, but also from court cases and other things that happen. NEFEC does a good job, but it's still a heavy lift on the district, and I think that this would allow for that lift to be a little bit more manageable as policies are changed on a regular basis.
So more incrementally, if like you said, if it's because of a legal situation, maybe not from the legislature, that's something that you guys would move into incrementally throughout the year, or?
I'm not sure what you're asking me. What
Like
I can tell you,
updates.
what I can tell you is, like, when you get an update, we are going to send it to your point person. But then, if I was the representative, I'm going to come and I'm going to sit down with them. I'm going to go over it, explain what it is, and so that they know and they can explain it to the staff. And what we tell people is, don't work on this more than 10 minutes. Call us. I'm going to respond to you. And that's what our clients tell us the most is other companies is they'll send the update to you, but what we do is more of hands-on. I mean, I'm going to know you, your people are going to call me, your staff's going to call me, or whatever associate, and we're going to explain it. We have trainers that come in. We have Ken St. James, he's this wonderful trainer. He's going to train all your people how to do everything. And we have it's more interface with the district than some of the other companies that do this.
So just a higher level of service is what we're maybe gaining through, you're saying, I just want to say outside of the policy itself, the added benefit here is that you're going to also help the superintendent and staff implement the process and procedures from the policy. You're going to give recommendations there. I think
we have a whole set of templates, and their staff could work on them. We'll help them with them. I mean, I have counties where I go in, and I've helped them develop their procedure manual. Other ones, they say, no, I've got it.
Mm-hmm.
It just depends on what they want.
But it's available to them if they need it.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. No, and like we said, the update, I mean, you get 5 hours of associate assistance. When we're going through this manual, it's 60 face-to-face hours. We may send 2 people in, but you're only getting charged 1 hour, so that we can get the job done and do it correctly for you.
Let's say like we had something crazy going on in the world, like COVID again. Do we still have the autonomy to decide what we're gonna be doing and create those policies?
Well, based on what this, as far as your policy, usually it's an emergency, and there's a policy in the templates about you all have to take emergency action on something. That's one of the policies, and then you'd have to follow what the state says. But if there's a policy that you want that is not in their template, you're the board, they're your policies, you can bring forward that policy, and as long as it is agreed upon, by and approved by the board, then that policy will be included into your manual. So regardless of what that is, maybe it's because of something happening, so you'll implement your emergency, but if it's just a topic that you want included that's not in their template, you still can bring that forward as the board.
So basically, it becomes a starting point of a well-thought-out policy based on legislature or whatever we're driving it. And then from there, we take that and we can adopt it as written if we feel it fits, or we can make modifications to it.
Well, I'm going to give you a real good example. Finance, and those rules in the red book are very, very clear. And so we meet with finance directors and they say, yep, this, and I like the way it's laid out. But some people may change it a little. But finance is a perfect example. Those are rarely changed, very little. But when we work with the finance department, but then some of the it just depends. Some of them are adapted quite a bit, and so that's why I say I use the term Flaglerize them, and that's what we want you to do. This is a starting point. We'll meet with your staff, and we will generate a manual that represents Flagler County.
Can I comment?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt anybody. For what it's worth, I can share a little bit. Many moons ago, we looked at Neola, and at the time, NESEC was kind of ramping up their legislative review of policies, providing policy updates and whatnot. I will tell you, there's no one better who does this. They are known for, this is their area of expertise. I would recommend board members, if you have any, inklings, questions, or concerns, I'm sure that we can get a list of Neola districts and you can reach out to those board members. Because policy review is a beast. And I remember, I think it was my second term, so you're talking a long time ago, we spent an entire year, and it was, when you talk painful, people who enjoy policy. Those are not normal people.
Now watch it.
Now, they're from one policy want to another, I can say that, right? But most people, it is painful. Because naturally what happens as a board, you get into wordsmithing. And then when you get into wordsmithing and you've got hundreds, if not thousands, of policies to review, it becomes it's just an incredible task. And then for staff to then utilize whatever that might be as the outcome for their own procedures, the whole thing just becomes a tangled bowl of cooked spaghetti. I highly support the idea of handing this giant project over to Neola to assist with. We're not abdicating our own responsibility. My understanding is we will have Flagler-specific policies that may be specific very much to Flagler. What Chrissy brought up, we would still have the autonomy depending on what the law is or the emergency orders may be. But I don't believe this is abdicating or giving away our responsibility for developing policy. But with the way legislative changes come around, the way things move so quickly and so fast, it is all a trickle effect. So the policy changes, well then all of the procedures along with that all have to change. And all the links have to be tied in, and it's just a beast. I can't even imagine for staff. So the idea that not only would we be getting policy that is being utilized across the state and is already in practice. But we'd also, staff and leadership would also be getting access to a lot of those ready-made, how do you put this in place, procedure type items. That's my understanding from what we're looking at purchasing. And I just think it's well worth the value.
I'll just add, 3 years ago, I met with you, and I met with some of your colleagues during the same time frame on Neola, and was sold then. Absolutely sold, because I realized at that point, until now, our attorney had been doing all of the policy updates plus everything else, which is, it's ridiculous. It's very hard to try to keep those things going. So I had brought it back at that point. We're just a little slow getting to the where we really need it. And I'm very glad to see that you're here, because it is something that would make things much more productive in the school board area, and yet you can still make it your own. But it automatically will include all the updates, which is very time consuming. So thank you for being
No,
here.
my pleasure. Is there anything else I can?
No, I will say, I do like the fact that this is your focused area of expertise personally, and that's what you do and all you do, and
That's it.
and I do like the idea of the ongoing support after the fact there, and it clearly is time for us to overhaul our policies. So,
Yeah, it really is.
okay, that's all I have. Any other questions?
Did you talk about what next steps would be on this? Is this on the agenda?
It will come
Business
before
meeting?
you as a contract and then as a PO.
And the contract is this
It's-
information right here?
And the other document is there as well, but Mr. Delaney, of course, will review the final version of it before it goes before you
Awesome.
to take action.
Just one question, LaShaka, who do you think would be the point person?
We haven't yet gotten to that
Because
point.
that's important.
Yes,
It's going to be an
it
important,
is.
it's going to be a lot of
It
work,
is.
too.
But I'm thinking Mr. Sanfilippo is going to be the point person for right now, that he's the corraller of the people right now. And so he's likely going to be
That's
the point
good, until
person
you get things
to
figured out.
corral the people, to
Yep.
make sure, it's going to be a lot of work.
It is,
But
absolutely.
if you as a board are going to look at overhauling and reviewing your policy, it's either you're going to be paying for a service to do that, or you're going to be paying for your attorneys to do that in a different manner.
Correct.
And I don't know
Either
that
way,
we
you're
have-
paying.
Yes.
No, it seems like a good route to go. It's an informative presentation, so thank you very much
So
for
if you
that.
have any questions, you can give them to the superintendent. She can send them to me. And it was a wonderful meeting you on, seeing you again.
Thank you,
Have a
Ms.
nice
Martinson.
day.
All right,
Thank
thank
Appreciate
you. Bye-bye.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to our next agenda item, 12.01, and that is our legislative platform. And Mr. John Sarah, welcome. Good to see you, John.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys having me. It's nice to see you all again. Ultimately, the district and staff, we want to thank you, Superintendent Moore, for going through the time to set up a platform and work forward through our 24-25 legislative session. If there are any questions, if you'd like to go through each platform agenda item, or how would you like to move forward, Mr.
If we could just run through them, and then we'll save questions to the end, but if somebody has a short one, they can chime in the middle of that.
Well, the first would be including all pre-kindergarten students in school capacity reports. This would inform local growth management needs and planning for future capital development. Number two is funding increases to the student transportation allocation to cover at least 80% of actual costs. For as long as I've been doing this, transportation has always been underfunded. That would be my quick answer. And there's many tweaks that we could try to work through to provide better opportunities for bringing our kids into school and funding that more adequately.
John, what are they paying us now percentage-wise?
Well, total amount, you paid a little over $6 million, and the state provided about 3.6. So your shortfall was a little over 2.4, or a little under 2.4 million. Now, understand, we need to get our children to school. Paying the $2.4 million is sometimes considered a cost of doing business. I would say we'd be happy to make sure our students get there safely and securely, but the state also should be providing a little bit more funding to make sure that we can continue to provide the excellent service that we already do provide to our district and our children and parents.
Can I, I'm so sorry, this is just the one that we've talked quite a bit about. Is it still the case, what's the 2 mile, 1 mile? Because to me, that seems like such a specific rural Florida issue where we don't have sidewalks. We're not an urban area. Kids in this neighborhood, or in this community, can't get to school safely if they are 1.5 miles away.
And sometimes that unfortunately has been vision over the last millennia that we've been working with vehicles. But truthfully, there are distinct issues. Sidewalks are one. Children being able to get to our school or being locally close, not having to cross a highway.
Right.
In some of our rural areas, we have major highways that are normal thoroughfares, 2-lane highways where large trucks are going by, and larger cities have different issues.
Sure.
Multi-lane issues, people driving too fast,
Yeah.
we all have cell phone issues, XYZ. But the 2 mile issue was how the state tried to get to trying to figure out how to get students or giving parents an opportunity. Those who were inside of 2 miles, they figured you could get your child to school safely and securely without utilizing a bus. And those 2 miles and above, obviously the thinking would be that you would need transportation to help get those students into school.
So you just clarified, the idea is not children can walk up to 2 miles, it's that the parents should be able to make plans. I'm just, for the benefit of the public, I think it's such an interesting
And if we do have Mr. O.J. Walker, our Director of Transportation, if someone brings forward a hazardous walking conditions, he'll go out and do a study in those areas, and if there is, and it meets, and the state also has very strict criteria about that, then we do provide the transportation for those families.
We just
if
may
it is
not
considered.
get funded for it.
We can put in for funding,
could,
but
yeah.
it's still going to be, I mean, the shortfall is still going to
But it
be.
would be
Gotcha.
one of those things you would do a policy and, you know, moving back to the Neola conversation, you know, if you found a situation where you needed to transport kids within the 2 mile radius because of a bus situation, or they have to cross a canal to get around the school and you don't want children doing that, you know, that is a policy at the end of the day that also would go through here because it would be something specific to you. You would make sure it's proper, and then as you move forward, you would know why you were doing this busing within the 1.5 miles instead of 2 because of the specific need that the board had to address. And therefore, it'd be a local policy that you would have, and then therefore, once again, the safety and security of our children are foremost. If we have to spend a little bit more to make sure that they're safe and secure, I know we will do that. But at the end of the day, we need to remind the state that we do have different issues. Flagler is not Miami, and Miami is not Flagler. We do have rural issues that other cities do not have, or counties, and so the more that we could convince the state that there are issues that they could help us and help children, we're going to try to forward those policies. Lastly would be,
Hey, John.
yes, ma'am.
I just want to make note while we're talking about this, to bring to mind for the public, to the benefit of the public, could you share again what was the number that was underfunded for transportation?
It's about $2.39 million, $2.390 million was underfunded.
Right, so 2.3. I want folks to understand that that $2.3 million has to come from somewhere, and it comes from our general fund. Now, on top of that, think about the shortfall and the underfunding for ESC. That traditionally is over $7 million. So right there is almost $10 million of unfunded mandates. Items and things that we are required to do by law that we are not funded to do at what's required by the law, and we have to basically, you know, steal from Peter to pay Paul. And that has to come from somewhere, and it comes from our general fund, which means we don't have as much money to do things that those dollars are meant to, which is to provide instruction in the classroom and provide salaries and benefits and all the rest of it. So I just, thank you, I'm done. I just wanted to make sure the public understood that this is only one aspect of an unfunded mandate for the district.
Okay.
And last would be recognizing all students within the capital outlay formula. The pull-outs would be our pre-kindergarten students, and our career and technical are not counted within that. And so if we can make some tweaks there, it could bring some much-needed dollars to the district and give us some opportunity to make some different decisions for our both adults and our younger children.
So in this one, number 3, had that been in place, you know, last year we asked for the 1.6 for our career and technical, so we would have been able to use some of our capital dollars without a special project, but if we had the money, we could use the capital dollars to have done that addition if we had the money to do it. Is that what this would allow?
The quick answer would be yes.
Okay.
And so the idea would be to free up areas that we're utilizing space for our community, our students, our adults, to further their education, to make sure that we are able to fund that appropriately by and create as a capital expense. You know, if we were doing technical projects, we need to bring in those technical resources. So I mean, so yes. The quick answer is yes, but we would probably still would have had to ask, because getting $1.6 million for a shovel-ready project, you know, takes a little bit of time, and you have to be shovel-ready to go in. But at the end of the day, the answer would be yes, and your finance department would be able to have a 5-year plan and look forward to that growth and, once again, reacting to your community as it changes.
So, but essentially, if that was to come into play, if it was a $1.6 million project and we were able to get $1 million, we would be able to use our capital dollars to fill the gap.
Absolutely.
If we felt that was the best.
And there could be
way to go.
recurring dollars that would offset that, and yes, the answer would be, and maybe in 3 years, you could have funded that project and continued to move forward, and, you know, and hopefully the state will see some of these needs. Other districts also have some of these same requests or similar, and so maybe we could get together with other folks as well and change the direction in Tallahassee.
And are we looking into the grants for that?
We are.
Okay, so, there was a specific name for that grant program, do you recall what it was? Reach, okay, right, okay, great. Okay. Any questions on these legislative?
I think the funding for transportation is great. Just the other day, I was driving out to Ormond. My sister lives out there, but she's in Flagler County, and there is more houses going up. And I'm thinking to myself, like, are these kids going to be Flagler students? like it's a lot, and we have to be able to reach those areas and get them to school. So
Yeah, and as Dr. Conklin highlighted, I don't know that the public is aware of how much unfunded mandates we have, and these are, we must do them, and we must find the money. So
Right.
it is, and that is a big challenge when you have only so much. And on top of that, you know, over 80% of our budget is going to, you know, the cost of personnel and staff and everything else. So there's such a small piece left over for education, you know, and
Enhancements.
enhancements, right. And so every penny counts. So I think that's a good effort
Thank
for
you.
us to pursue.
Can you just share a little bit like timeline for them?
Yes, well, first of all, as we vote this in, we were going to ask the board representative to forward this to FSBA, so this could also be a part of their platform decision-making process. The next big day, believe it or not, is my birthday, November 19th. The legislature every year will organize, and so they love me, and so they want me in Tallahassee, and we will celebrate with them for a couple hours as they become legislators. The next dates start to come through December. We'll start having meetings in Tallahassee. The House will meet actually solo the first week of December, and then the Senate will go the next. And then as we plug through, the first Tuesday in March will be the first day of session. So there'll be some period of time that we'll do interim committee work where this platform will be absolutely necessary for Bob and I to have an opportunity to sit down and work and talk to people.
And we've been invited to be a part of the county-wide legislative platform brochure. Last year, we were not able to meet that timeline with just the transition of me coming in. If we want to be included in their brochure, where it just covers all of the platforms for Flagler County, we will need to get this voted on in the next coming month. And so I'll be pushing that information out to you, what the specific timeline is. If we're not prepared for you to take on a platform, then that's not a problem. But I just want you to be aware if you want to be included in what the county will produce for the area, we do have a tighter timeline.
And lastly, I will tell you, this does not lock us into anything. As things change, I mean, things could come on and off, and as we get new folks, some of the ideas might change, and so in December, there might be something that pops up that the district might feel is a priority, which will, then if the board decides, we will make an adjustment and provide it on the platform and rank it accordingly, or, so you understand. So at the end of the day, we really appreciate you doing this work early, because getting this work done before the election gives us an opportunity to start talking to staff and start talking to other districts and seeing what the interest is out there for several of our good ideas.
That's great.
I do think, for what it's worth, I do think there's definitely value, and I think it's respectful as well to get the input of the new incoming members.
I have shared with the new incoming members this platform.
Right.
Yes, I have shared with them, as well as the contact information for the Sarah brothers in the event that they wanted to ask any questions. So I did do that.
And we are gonna have them come to some future
Yes.
workshops also here very soon, I think in the
Great.
Next month.
I think that'll
yeah,
just
yeah.
let them hit the ground running, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Just to build on what Superintendent Moore asked about, the county efforts, something I'd like to see if you could lend a hand and some advice on, or on how we might do this. When it comes to our legislative efforts, how could we support the YMCA coming to Flagler? The reason I bring that up is because, our pool is aging, right? And as it sets right now, it doesn't really fully accommodate the needs of all of our students for athletics, right? And so we keep that thing afloat, but I think the horizon for a new pool in this community is likely going to be the YMCA. But the problem is, just like us, they had put a request out this legislative session, and they were cut as well, just like our special project was cut. So, and what I say that as far as support is how can we, through Flagler Schools, tell Tallahassee how the school can benefit from this pool? Do you have something to
I'll add in generalizations, because in a lot of respects, I've been here so many times for some of this discussion in the past, and I thought I'd get away from this one time. But at the end of the day, supporting any opportunities that help children and our community, because obviously your first drive is to help children, then their families, and then the rest of the community. And so anything that helps that group of folks, we want to support. The truth being told, if the YMCA or the city or the county wants to be the lead on this, the district, we have lots of other things that we're doing, and I know anything that helps students, we'd be happy to support, and we'd be able to support in Tallahassee. And so if the YMCA or the city or the county came with a proposal, I know there's ways that we could share how that would help not only the district, but our students, families, and so it would be an easy way to get behind those types of projects, especially if they're forwarded by either the organization or the city or the county, because once again, we could support them, because really at the end of the day, that's what they're asking for, is support. And the district could have a resolution and say, we support this for these many reasons. We want to teach kids to swim. We want to make sure about, X, Y, Z, and there's multiple very strong, good reasons why we would keep a project like that going and partner both with the county, city, and all these other groups that would help our kids, families, and students.
Okay, so more of a, like, instead of actually making it any part of a legislative platform, but more of a local resolution of support for our community partners.
And we could, the truth, once again, we could have meetings on this, the YMCA, I don't know who the forwarding group would be, but we could come back as a board and vote to support this, vote to put this on our platform as one of our issues, where once again, they are the lead, but we are supporting to make sure, once again, we bring the best opportunities to our community and those folks that you represent.
That's good. Well, that's something I think we might entertain as we move forward here, just because there's only so much time that these pools are going to be able to operate, whether it's the cities, we're using the city, we're using our pool at Belterre, and the time is running out for these pools. So there's no doubt that a why, not just for Flagler schools, but there's overwhelming support from the community that I've seen that they'd like to see it come here. But I think it's going to take the whole community to come together to make it happen. So thanks for sharing some possibilities on how we might.
And
Yeah.
we're always
Let
happy to
me
be
add
your
that,
voice.
And let
in
me add that a
Tallahassee.
little bit.
Yes, ma'am.
We've been negotiating with the Y for over 10 years. Over
Yeah,
10
that's
years.
okay.
We have had meetings with the Y representation, with the city's representation, because the city and the county all were involved in trying to get a Y here. Most of the problem that we always ran into was the fact, and I think it's still the same, is the Y is more than welcome. They want to come, but they also want the county, the city, and the school district to build the facility. You build the facility, they'll be more than glad to come here and run it for you. That's their mantra. The closest we got was to get the recent money that they were trying to do in conjunction with the city to possibly make that happen. So there's a long history here between the YMCA and Flagler County, not just us.
Yeah, and and I know there have been efforts, and part of it was to take over the pool, but I think that their vision is much bigger than that. And so what I say by lending support is, again, they put that push out for the money this year, they didn't get it. But we have another legislative session, we have new people coming in, and people may have different feelings about that. The governor may have a different feeling about it come budget time. So just a more of, in this case, I think that's a great solution, is just we consider a resolution of support to let the governor know, let our legislators know, hey, Flagler Schools, from our perspective, this is how our students could benefit from this, right? And I know other entities within the government are doing the same thing from their perspective. So that's kind of where I think would be a great way to do that.
I think it's also, we all know, and I would imagine the city and the county would not argue the fact that over the last several years, it's loud and clear that our community needs some sort of an aquatic center. It may be in Lashaka, the conversations that you're having with the county and the cities, if we're looking at a unified project, I definitely think we should be part of their legislative platform. I don't know how anybody presents without including the school district. So I really do think that that's an important, even if it's in support of whatever the legislative platform is that they have agreed upon. But collectively, if you look at something that would benefit the children, and the community, an aquatic center is definitely right up there. And it may be that the legislature, and John, you may know this better than anybody given your history, the legislature just may not be keen on funding a project or a pool for an entity like the YMCA, but they might be comfortable, providing the funds to Flagler County or Palm Coast City Rec as a public entity. So, and I don't know if that matters one hill of beans. But I think what I'm hearing John say is we want to sign on and support whatever legislative initiative they have, correct? But we don't want to put, everything, we don't want that to be our main one ask.
Right.
Right.
Thank you, Dr. Connell. I feel heard.
John, I always hear you better. I always hear you.
Working in a family business is sometimes hard, so thank you very much.
One of the things that's been talked about before in this room is, maybe you can remind me how it works. There are counties in Florida that don't have the tax base that we have here. And so we send $1 to Tallahassee and we get like 80 cents back to be able to be used here in Flagler County, because we're basically.
95.
Okay, 95. So we are supplementing 5 cents on the dollar to maybe more rural communities for their schools, for their roads who don't have the tax base. Is that kind of, is that, am I remembering that right?
But last year, and I'm gonna put Patty on the spot, have her come up and talk a little bit about that, but the work that was done, I think is now 2 sessions ago, helped to get us into a better place, and I just want her to talk a little bit about it.
Thank you, Superintendent Moore. Yes.
And you can just stay here, because I think you're next.
I brought my water. It was 23, 24 when we, our lobbyists especially, worked hard for this for a couple years, and instead of having a DCD, there's another acronym for it now, but we are at 1.0, so everything that we do get, it
Wow.
is received in whole.
Yes.
That's a
There
big
are
deal.
some, everyone is a minimum of 1.0, and there are some that are a little bit above. Is that correct, Mr.
Yes.
Sarah?
That's correct.
Yes. So they heard us loud and clear.
That's
So
great.
it's been 2 sessions ago that they addressed that.
Yep.
And once again, our leadership, both Speaker Renner and Senator Hudson, were instrumental in making that change. And little changes make big differences.
Yeah,
And
that's
so
a big
when we
deal.
talk about little changes, even in the transportation arena, it might not affect a larger district, but it could mean a lot to.
And that one change now is recurring change
Correct.
for us. And so we absolutely appreciate the work that they did
Yeah.
to make us whole.
Absolutely.
That's a nice positive. Thank you.
Yeah, it was a
And
huge win
Sally,
for
I
us.
think you're referring to like Florida, unlike most states. Florida does have the most equalizing educational formula across the state. So students are basically getting that formula, that the funding formula is supposed to equalize. So you don't have really super poor districts and super rich
Oh, I am
districts.
thinking I'm probably combining the conversation also with the millage conversation.
Yes, the property
You're,
tax.
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
right. I think I'm combining all of it together.
The end.
But I
Yes.
understand what
Yeah.
you're saying, and
Yeah.
truthfully, that's unfortunately how it works. And so as we move
Yeah.
forward, thankfully, as we move forward, the fact that we understand the district in the way we do, minor changes at the end of the day in Tallahassee can once again be monumental here.
Okay.
And really, when you talk about tweaking like formulas that make a big difference, the transportation formula, they fund us based on 3 butts in a seat. I mean, that's not realistic. So even tweaking at least that's how it was years ago. I haven't heard it changed, and it certainly hasn't made a difference in the money. But, instead of just a simple statement along, fully fund the mandate, it may be, look at the formula and take that angle where it's tweaking of the formula. Fund us per 2 students in a seat.
Very good. Are there any other questions for Mr. Sarah?
Thank you for the
All
good
right.
work.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks,
Really
Sean.
appreciate it.
Appreciate.
Good afternoon, Chairman Furry, board members, and Superintendent Moore. I am here to answer any questions you may have on consent items 7.01 through 7.08, starting with 7.01, our charter school financials.
Okay. So are there any questions for Ms. Wormack on Imagine Financials?
I will just make one comment on pages 4 through 6. Their expenses are now more expanded in detail. They have changed their financial system. So you will see, starting on pages 3 through 6, it is down to the object level, and they are now in full adherence with the Red Book.
Good to know. Okay. If there are no questions, we'll move on to 7.02, purchase orders over $10,000.
So I just wanted Patty and Ryan to kind of, just for the public, to break down the NEFEC cost, if that's okay.
Sure. I had a couple board members ask about the NEFEC POs. These are annual purchase orders for the year. And I'm going to have Ryan go through some aspects on their contract, just for further explanation and for full transparency for the public.
So within the contract, there's several different components that make up the total contract. There's basically the main contract, that's the $33,000. There's our instructional services program, which is $62,000. And then there's the enterprise resource software, which that is our ERP, our HR finance, and our student information system from Skyward. That's broken down into two different components, one being the Skyward annual license fee, and that this year is just over $186,000. And then that price is negotiated for the consortia group based off the total number of students that are in the consortia, including our students plus the other 11 districts that participate. So that kind of gives us somewhat of an advantage from the standpoint of now we have more students than to kind of negotiate against. Those fees pretty much pass through NEFAC directly to Skyward, and those are kind of our license fees for like all the updates that come through, any kind of changes that are mandated from the state for state reporting, any kind of legislative changes that are either around finance or HR that require system changes. So those are what's covered from that. The other side of it is $416,000, and that really is the implementation side. So NEFAC hosts and manages our ERP, HR finance, and our student information system. They also serve as the tier 1 support. So when our teams have issues within the application, we work directly with NEFAC, and then we have the opportunity then to push that through up to Skyward. So if you look at some of those, the way that's set up, that gives us the advantage then of having lower licensing fees with Skyward for that direct support. Within that, they also cover all of our disaster recovery as well as our real-time backups and off-site opportunities. So that also includes like if there were issues with any types of storm or event, so to speak, that would require like processing payroll from an alternate location. So they manage all of those as well. And then the really big piece of this is our risk management component. And so all of these different pieces make up the total contract, but the risk management is a little over $2.5 million, and it, generally speaking, is the most advantageous piece of the consortia for our district, because it is leveraging all of the property as well as general liability insurance across all of those 12 districts. So us being a coastal community, we really get to take advantage of that when you look at some of the other districts that are more centrally located within Florida.
And that requisition is the only one of these separate contract items that is not on this PO report. It will be on next month's PO report, just due to some adjustments we had to have NEFAC do to their spreadsheet they sent to us.
But to your point of what these dollars are, we consistently look at what all of these are at and continually kind of decide and try to determine, okay, what pieces of these, what can we do? And really what it comes down to is these consortia that were set up within Florida are really to support rural districts. So when you start getting larger and become a larger district, roughly that 18 to 22,000 students depending, is really when it would be advantageous for a district such as ourselves to look at what opportunities are outside of those consortia. But that is really what the focus and the charter, so to speak, from the state for all of these, the 3 different consortia to exist, right? There's Panhandle Consortia, there's a Heartland Consortia, and there's the NEFAC Consortia.
Okay, does that answer your question?
I was also looking at maintenance and utilities. I'm just curious, do any of the other governmental bodies, do they contribute to that, or do we?
So the maintenance and utilities, that's the one to the Flagler County Board of Commissioners.
Mm-hmm.
So that is part of our contract we have with this building. We pay roughly 48%, and they pay 52. I don't know the exact tenths, but so that's written into our contract that we entered into when we first went into this building with them.
Okay. Any other?
Mr. Chair,
Yeah. Yes, please go ahead, Dr. Cox.
I'm sorry I missed it, but the charter school financials, Patty,
Yes.
I just want to highlight page 3, halfway down. If you look at the, and again, I know I sound like a broken record, but you're going to be rid of me pretty soon. Out of the 1.8, I want you to take note of the capital outlay dollars, of the $871,000. Those are capital outlay dollars that used to completely come to the school district. Those are tax dollars that are now going and paying for the building of a private company that is owned and a subsidiary of Imagine Schools. Our tax dollars are paying for this facility. I don't understand why I'm like nobody else is. People should be crazy about that. But anyway, but at least we know where those tax dollars are going. I just wanted to highlight that because now we're seeing the capital outlay dollars come out.
Which amount is that? I'm sorry, Dr. Conklin.
It's the
800. So if you look on page 3, right, and you go to facilities and acquisition, right, it used to come out of their budget, all of it.
Sure.
But now, because of the state change in the state statute, they're able to pay also out of their capital outlay dollars. So that $871,000 that you see, those are tax dollars, local tax dollars, right? Just like we get our capital outlay, our millage, and those are your dollars and my dollars, and they are paying the lease payments for the building of the $1.8 million. $1.8 million in total, they're all our tax dollars, are being paid for that facility. And we will never own it. The taxpayers in Flagler County will never own it. It will be owned by a private corporation that is subsidy of the parent organization. But those are your dollars and my dollars. It's just outrageous to me. So I know I sound like a broken record, but I just wanted to point it out because it's really kind of the first time I noticed that they pulled out the capital outlay dollars. But then again, now they have them. So at least we see where they're going.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other comments or questions? Okay.
Yeah, I just want to find out, but again, I'm interested. I see we have 45,000 assigned for Weiss and Sirota and another 42,000 for the district, sniffing and spelling. Is that a payment?
Those are estimates for the total annual cost. If it exceeds it, it will be adjusted during the year.
Okay.
That is an annual purchase order.
Okay, because by calculation I have, we've already spent 191,000. Now, some
From-
of that's for bargaining, which
For
we're going to pay anyway.
23-24 fiscal
Yes,
year.
yes.
Correct.
Yeah, we're way over what we paid in the past, so I'm concerned.
Are we going to go over that in 1901? The school board attorney process?
Well, that's the process, but
Yeah,
do you want to address the
finance?
finance? Are we way over what we,
In the past,
for legal costs?
For 23-24, the total legal cost for the board counsel is $51,000 approximately. Sniffin and Spellman for in-house counsel is $53,000, and for chief negotiating is $38,000. The chief negotiation services was already
Yeah,
contracted
correct.
for.
Correct.
So in total, it's been about
104.
$105,000 combined for the last 6 months of the fiscal year of
Right.
23-24. The estimate was made considering bringing on new counsel, them
Right.
kept getting caught up,
Right.
the extra hours being used. It's an estimate. It's the best we could do at this point based on what we feel is going to happen. We also did budget about $100,000 for in-house counsel. So if we do not get in-house counsel within the next few months,
Gives us a
that
cushion.
budget will go to add to any additional costs we need for these POs. So in whole, I will say that we are budgeted in full for the fiscal year, whether it's through the salaries of the in-house attorney or whether it's the contracted services for outside counsel.
Okay, because that's what you're gonna have to make sure when you budget again. Hopefully by then we'll have a district council.
Yeah.
And they'll be able to eat that up
Mhm.
and then see what's left for the school board.
Correct.
Okay.
When you say, just real quick follow-up, when you say salary for in-house counsel, when you speak to that, when you use the term salary, are you encompassing benefits also? Is
Yes.
that kind of
So,
assumed that
yes.
that's the whole
Yes,
package?
thank you, Ms. Hunt. So the budget for $100,000 was under the thought process that we wouldn't have someone in probably for the first quarter. So that's why we also budgeted for contracted costs for in-house counsel as well. So in total, if you were to look at the whole fiscal year of 12 months, there should be theoretically enough budget between the in-house salary and benefits and the contracted services for our in-house counsel.
And with the understanding that even when we had a different structure, there was always costs for other attorneys to support
Outside.
to support the work, as well as the contract that we currently have for bargaining and negotiations. All of those dollars would not change even if we were to go to a different structure than we currently have.
Correct.
What is the range, the salary range for the district that you're advertising for the district council?
I
You
don't
know?
have that specifically off the top of my head, I'm sorry, but we can definitely get that to you and
Yeah,
to
I'd
you
be
guys.
curious.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll move on to vendor payments. Any questions there? Hearing none, we'll move on to 7.04, deletion of inventory. Hearing no other comments, we'll move on to 7.05, board approval for finance budget amendments. Okay, we'll move on to 7.06, board approval of professional development travel. Okay, and so we'll move on to 7.07. We have an update on the finance phishing.
Thank you, Mr. Furry. I just wanted to bring a final update on this phishing fraud situation that happened last year in September with one of our contractors. Our insurance company through NEFAC has finally completed their review of our paperwork that was submitted for reimbursement. The part of the policy that relates to this fraud situation that happened covers a $50,000 deductible. Fortunately, the paperwork we submitted that they reviewed, they did conclude that we did qualify for the full $50,000. The other amount that was reimbursed to us through J.P. Morgan, through the sheriff's office, was $19,700. In total, it was about 10% that we have recovered from this situation. Insurance has closed out their part. We have received their check for the $50,000, and that is the conclusion, the final update I have for you on this situation.
Are we aware of any other recourse to recover any of that loss outside of these insurance avenues that we went to?
We are not. Our former council did investigate those areas. We did and did provide a memo that we can make public, that there was no cyber coverage that the company had, nor was it identified that there was a breach experienced on our side or a breach experienced on their side. We did, after the conclusion, of course, we worked with the sheriff's office. We did do an internal investigation ourselves as well to identify were there any breaches in our protocol procedures or any of those things. We did look at that. What we found is that there were some procedures that we could definitely improve based on just what is happening with technology right now, but there was not an individual who did anything that went against our procedure in that moment.
And those internal procedures have been updated for several months now and were reviewed with the superintendent and the internal professional standards person who investigated this.
And so do we feel these will be effective to mitigate the risk of this happening in the future?
I would say based on the massive updates, yes.
And we've also used this as an opportunity for additional education through our technology department, through phishing, what are they called? Through our cybersecurity, like our training and pushing information out to individuals that are coming from us to make sure that they are checking all the things that they should be checking to know that they're actually engaging with someone, and this is not, fraud happening. So we've improved that and updated that as well.
So education to the staff about how to identify suspicious emails that might come through, that type of thing?
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. And pushing out those emails. And if someone were to click on it and open it up, there's lessons that they go through and to learn, again, relearning all the things that they should be looking for when they do receive an email that may not be legitimate.
And how is this rolled out throughout the district as far as this education?
Some of it is rolled out directly through their devices, and so you will receive it, and if you don't fall for it, then you will continue to move forward. But if you click on it, then you'll be given a course of lessons that you need to do. Now.
Okay.
Yeah, so almost seeing will you fall for this.
So it's, through our
yes,
technology.
push out
Okay,
our
so it's
technology,
essentially
yes.
like a internal test, and so it's not just a video saying, hey, look out for phishing. It's actually seeing if some of our employees
It's
might
live.
accidentally, and then it will alert them, say, hey, you just got
Phish.
clicked on a fish.
Yeah, and so we also rolled this out through our principals, through a principals meeting, through our bookkeepers, as well as our secretarial staff. Those individuals who would be more prone to it, but this is huge, right? Because it deals with monies that are district dollars, but this is something that does happen where people are sending you emails. Like I've experienced that as well, where there's an email that looks like it's coming from me and it's saying, hey, go get gift cards for me. I need your help. Could you do this really fast? So these things are happening on a regular basis in the world, and so of course this is a hard lesson because it deals with dollars, and so making sure that we're vigilant with training our staff for what to look for.
And do we have technology that sort of scans these emails coming in through our enterprise system
Yes.
to identify potential risky emails?
Yes, we do. Will it catch it all? It never will catch
Right.
it all, but we do have
Something.
Yes, we do have good systems in place.
Was there any disciplinary actions taken on this loss? For
Corrective actions.
Disciplinary actions.
Yes, corrective actions, for sure, but I would not call disciplinary actions.
Were there letters of reprimand issued?
There was not a need for letters of reprimand, but really a need for individuals to be trained, because nobody broke a procedure. So when you think about, let me provide you a letter of reprimand, what am I being reprimanded for? Did I break policy, or did I do any of those things? That was not the case. So we did do some corrective conversations, training, all of those things.
So were these change in procedures, without going into extreme detail, because we don't want to tell everybody what we're doing, but in the sense, were these focused on wiring large amounts of money, or is there like a threshold, or, I just want to be
Sure.
satisfied with the fact that these things are are going to eliminate, or at least alleviate, the possibility of, without a second look, a third look, whatever it takes before that money leaves
Sure.
our bank account?
The situation did not involve an actual wire, which is a misconception. Was a normal part of an accounts payable run that was done every 2 weeks. The reason it was so large was due to the nature of the contractor. What has changed, without, again, going into too many details, is there are multiple employees involved in the transaction before the button is pushed to send it to the bank every 2 weeks. So there's multiple layers of security involved that was not as, I guess, as secure, as many layers, I guess you could say, previous to this happening. We did have our bank personnel, our bank contacts come in, give training to our finance staff, as well as just myself, Carrie, and our superintendent. And then we did push that out to the bookkeepers, which our bank contacts have come in and did, and they will do that on an annual basis, as there are so many of these fraud incidents that change daily, weekly, that it's very imperative that we continue to get that information from them, who are the key people who see this every day. So we have vetted a lot of our procedures through them. We also reached out to multiple different CFOs, multiple different district finance officers to compare our new procedures to theirs, to make sure that we have the most heightened procedures that we can have, given the situation, in order to make sure that it does not occur again.
And I'm glad that you added, it wasn't just our procedures, but some of the practices that we changed even with our banking as well, enhancing those. And just, again, when we look at when this occurred with us, it were 3 other districts that same week that this occurred to. And so it's something that we have to always be looking at, seeing what's happening, working with other districts to make sure we have the strongest procedures as technology changes and advances.
And as far as like, we had coverage through this policy that got us the 50,000.
Mm-hmm.
Have we assessed, had any kind of risk assessment to say, hey, are we underinsured for these type of risks, considering the size of this one?
And we have not done that with our new council, and that's definitely something that we can do, but we have not at this point done that with the current council that we have.
Okay, that might be something to look at, because obviously that's a very 10% recovery, and not all of that was insurance. Also, what are we doing to be more proactive rather than reactive in this case? Because as we know, just like AI and everything else that involves technology, these scams are getting more and more sophisticated. So how are we investing in the go forward to make sure we can get ahead of these type of scams in the future? Is there some sort of procedure in place for that?
I can't speak about the technology piece of it, but I can tell you just from the finance procedural piece of it, we have shortened the amount of times we do ACH updates to make sure that all of the procedures are in place, that there are multiple eyes looking on it. We do not do them as they come in. We have a new procedure in place that they are only looked at once a month, because we have to put all these new procedures in place to make sure that they are all reviewed, all the reports are printed for the changes that are requested and put in our system. All of the paperwork is cross-checked, phone calls are made. So it's a much more time-consuming process. And the point is, we don't need to be rushed to do something like this. So in rolling out these new procedures, we have given us and our staff a decent amount of time to make sure that there's plenty of time to do this. We have deadlines of if anything comes in after this date, it gets rolled to the following month. And a lot of these procedures, again, like I mentioned, were developed through talks with other school districts and our bank contacts as well.
I think that's a huge part of it, is, you know, making sure our partners realize that's the case too. You may want your money, you know, quickly, but this is our process and we have to stay to it in order to ensure that these types of things do not happen.
and not to make light of the magnitude of the loss, but correct me if I'm wrong, this did not hit our general fund. This hit the capital fund that was allocated for the
Correct.
project at Matanzas Addition, right?
Correct.
And although it's still money lost from our capital account, it was said that that was well within our contingency numbers at that time.
At that time, I would have to get with Mr. Bush to determine where the project is now, but definitely at that time, it was within the, I think it was close to $1 million contingency, but I'll make sure to get an update from him just to, and I'll send that update out to the board.
Okay.
But yes, it was definitely capital dollars.
All right.
Hey, Patty?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Chair Furry, just, I think you've answered this before, but the insurance on the bank or the construction company side, were they able to make us whole, and not whole, but were they able to do anything with their insurance companies?
At the time that the memo was drafted, there was no policies for us to tap into.
Through the insurance company?
Yes.
They didn't have the policy.
through that company.
No, I just mean that did the construction company and the bank, it would seem that there would be some sort of insurance claim. No, they don't have the opportunity to put in a claim.
No, and please, my term analogy may not be at the level of the sheriff's office, but it was like first come. There were multiple claims made to the account. First come, first receive, and so by the time that we put in to it,
Go ahead, sorry.
the 19,000, what was left there to claim.
So that was not,
So the
that part
other-
was not insurance, that was just money that was still setting in the account.
Yes.
And by the time we had made our claim, that was the amount that we could
Correct.
recover from
Yes.
actual dollars in that physical account?
Yes.
Yeah, so there were multiple
Okay.
people that, there were multiple vendors impacted by this on that same bank account at JP Morgan. So by the time we got in line, that was all that was left.
Right, and no, I get that part. I just thought that there would be a claim or there would be some insurance opportunities to tap into either through the bank or through the construction company.
If I'm understanding the question, it's my understanding that all of the reason or part of the reason why this happened is that fraudulent characters were able to tap into the construction company's emails and see the communication between them and the district. So Dr. Conklin, are you asking, so like if I have someone work at my house and they are bonded and insured and something goes
Right.
wrong, is that kind of the line of question?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
There was no other, measure, and again, we can definitely have Mr. Delaney come through and look at this, but at the time, there was no other, measures that could be taken with the bank to get dollars or with any of the other insurance companies to get additional dollars.
Would it basically be a lawsuit if we wanted to sue a vendor because their systems
Yeah,
were not secure, right? Like you are a business provider, you provide a service, I'm assuming they are insured. If they did not do what they needed to do to secure their systems, is that then, I mean, you can sue anybody for anything, but is that the question of, did we look at any legal routes of?
At the point in time, our former attorney did look into that, and there was no evidence that there was a breach on their side.
Their side, okay.
However, this was December of 2023, so we definitely can have current legal review all that has been done and see if there's other avenues to recover anything.
Just real quick, if I recall, there were other agencies involved, like the FBI and the Secret Service, because of it was a cybercrime. Was there, we know the sheriff did their part and did the recovery effort and recovered that. Great work on their part. Too bad there's only 19,000 left, but that's not on them. But then from the overall cybercrime investigation, was there any conclusion there to say, hey, okay, so here's, based on what we saw, this is, because obviously this entity, this third, the criminal, was able to get their numbers somehow, their account numbers somehow, to be able to or they were able to send us communication that looked like it was from them, but with their bank account numbers on it, essentially, or however that was done. So the question is, did it come through their email to us? Did they use it? Because if there was negligence on one side, typically most companies have, errors and omissions insurance and things like that you can make claims against for things like this, right? But I there has to be some sort of a finding of, of a mistake.
Yeah, it was the CIA, I believe, and possibly Secret Service, and it was dealing with just our former counsel, Christy Gavin. So I think what we can do is
and I think that
follow up with Delaney.
I think we need to follow up with Delaney, but if that is the direction, then I just think that maybe we need to come back again at a later point when he is here and can provide some additional look through. Our former attorney did look into those things, but we can have him to review it come again.
I'd say it'd be worth at least a look if there was a clear
agree.
sign of
I agree.
negligence, then and there is somebody responsible, then
We can have them.
let's do that. I say let's just take another look at that.
Okay.
And this is John, I'm one of David's partners, and I think I'm behind you guys.
Yes.
So thanks for having me today, and sorry I couldn't be there in person, but I'll speak with David. He had kind of filled me in on this a little bit, and obviously there's some information we need to gather, but I'll speak with David, and we can look to see if there's any potential avenues that might be available for the district.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay, so if there aren't any other comments, questions, then we'll move on to 7.08, request board approval of district financial statement.
These financials are just on the month of July, so as you can see, very little activity to this point. I will just make a statement for full transparency for the board and the public. We had previous meetings about refinancing our 2014 COPS debt. 2 weeks ago, we did have a meeting with our superintendent and board chair and our outside staff, which is the financial advisors and our bond counsel and disclosure counsel. And we did finalize that debt refinancing 2 weeks ago, and our financial advisors were able to price the market better than what they had anticipated. And our net present value savings on that refinancing is $699,000.
Awesome.
That is a direct savings to our capital fund as capital pays for our debt service payments. So that was a very positive in the last 2 weeks that we had met on a few times in the past couple months at board meetings.
That's great.
There's our 700,000.
Yes, well, we found it
Take
somewhere.
it. We'll take it.
Exactly. No, that's great news that we were able to accomplish that. Thank you for seeing that through. All right, so any other questions on this agenda item? If not, we will
Thank you.
move forward. Thank you, Ms. Womack.
And I do apologize, if we could make an adjustment for the sake of time, because we do have a 5:15 time certain, everything else on the agenda, we can adjust, either it's pretty standard, comes before you, we can double it up on the meeting that comes before you, before you take action on this. But if we could just have the conversation around the ECG, which is the only other area we have to get some direction on. The other items on here are pretty standard order. Are you okay with making that? Because we will have to have a hard stop at 5:15. We can resume, but if we could have the conversation on ECG now and then move through.
Okay.
It's my
I don't have
recommendation.
any problem with that.
Yeah,
Okay.
whatever you think is best.
So then we will move forward to 10.01, ECG screening. Mr. Houlihan.
And I'm sorry, I just think the rest of the stuff on the agenda is pretty standard things that come before you. Sorry, Mr. Reynolds, I know you were ready to go.
Hi, good afternoon, Chair, School Board Member, Superintendent Moore. I'm here for you for, I believe, the fourth or fifth time regarding ECGs, and really just looking forward to direction. Really welcoming some conversation piece with Dr. Conklin and Ms. Massaro to this conversation as well. Before we get to the 6 o'clock, we still have the 4 options out there for this board, really to narrow down to. And if you recall, there are 4 options. The first one being.
And I'll just say, this is coming back to you again because the chair did want for Ms. Massaro and Dr. Conklin to be a part of the discussion. So that's why it's coming back before you in this, through this route.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first option, the first policy that we would, and if you can go to the other presentation, and you scroll down to page 8, the first option would be an annually screening for all of our student athletes with a parent opt-out. Option 2 would be required screening for 9th and 11th graders or those students athletes that are participating for the first time, regardless of grade, with a parent opt-out as well. The third option is a one-time screening, so regardless if they're in 9th or through 12th grade, is a one-time screening, once again with a parent opt-out. And the fourth policy would be keep the status quo, everything that we have been doing as a district. If you recall, we did have 628 student athletes receive the free physical in May. 506 of those student athletes received the ECG, so 81% of the student athletes that went through the free physical night did go through an ECG. So that was up from 298 student athletes from the previous year. So I think that was a big communication push that we had. It was a 2-night event at FPC. We are already working with Advent Health to schedule those dates and those screenings available with our partnership with Advent Health. So I'm here for answer any questions.
Can I ask a quick, easy one, just to start off? Just if we put it simply, the options would be annual. So if I'm a Flagler student, I didn't come in from another state, I've been here all along. Option 1 is every single year, 4 times.
Mm-hmm. Every
Right.
Correct.
Next option would be 2 times.
Yes.
Third option, 1 time in my high school career. I'm assuming, and we would vote on maybe whether that's 9th grade or whatever grade that would be. And then obviously the 4th option is no change. So,
Yeah, and for option 2, there would be a caveat. Like, so let's say I'm a student athlete, I'm entering my first time playing athletics in 11th grade. I would not be rescreened my 12th grade year because I went through a screening in the 11th grade. So really it would be once.
got you. I was making the assumption
Yeah,
someone
right.
would just be would be
Yeah,
a
of
sports
course.
player.
Yeah.
But I guess there would be that chance. And what were those 2 grades again?
9th and 11th.
Okay, thank you.
Tommy, what's the overall feeling? What is the option that the staff, the coaches seem to want in
Yeah,
cabinet?
so this is our second year utilizing home campus for our physical paperwork.
Mhm.
Obviously, it's taken off a lot of the work from behind the scenes of paper copies of everything. Now, there still is something that we would have. There would be paper documents that the student athlete would have to turn into their athletic directors or upload to the athletic clearance through home campus with the required physical paperwork so they can document that. Working with Coach Butler and Mr. Drabzik, Scott Drabzik did come from Orange County. Orange County does have something similar like this. So he is familiar with the processes over there and the procedures over there. He has a lot of great contacts over there still. It's something that they just move forward with a policy.
What was their policy?
Are they doing it every year or?
are, but there is a opt-out, I believe. I would have to go back, let me go back and
But
I'll
when-
get that information for you.
I think her question is, in talking to our team, what are they leaning
What is-
more
yeah, what was
towards?
The district
where are they
team?
leaning?
Or,
Of the 4 options, what
Yeah.
are the options that they are recommending?
right now, option 4, which would be the
Keep it
one
as it
option,
is?
and then the one time. And therefore.
So one time or keep it as
As it is.
is?
Yeah,
Yeah.
continue to advertise it, but have the policy that we would offer it.
Okay.
I would lean towards once every 4 years because not a lot should be changing. As a parent mentioned, it
Yeah,
was just that
no, I
one
agree with
EKG
you.
that caught something that was congenital, which is mostly going to be with children, something that was from
I
birth.
agree with you.
So it would be one time ninth grade, but if you're new to Flagler or you're new to sports, then it would be in whatever year you enter sports with Flagler
Right,
schools.
correct.
But it would just be
Yeah.
one time as a student athlete for Flagler schools.
Right, and
And
but that doesn't. but
and
that-
there's an
I'm
opt-out for parents who don't want to do that?
We would offer an opt-out. Go ahead, Dr. Conklin, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, I'm sorry to interrupt. It's hard on the phone to make a break. I would agree with what everybody is saying as well, as far as the one time, because my understanding, and please somebody confirm, so I'm not incorrect. My understanding is if there is an issue, it will be caught. It's not something, a person is born with this.
Right.
So it's not like if it's missed in 9th grade or it's something that we develop and we catch it in 11th grade. If they have it, they have it. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so I would be fine with supporting it one time. I will once again say, I don't believe, I think we should make it mandatory. And again, we even heard from that one mom who said, she was super busy and she almost blew it off, but thank God she did blow it off. And that was right here in Flagler County, and the kid had a problem. I just think we protect everyone if we mandate it. And there's plenty of time to get it done, but it really literally could save a child's life. I'm struggling with understanding why we wouldn't mandate it. I don't see the religious reason behind not mandating it. I just don't understand not mandating it if it could save a child's life.
Well, the question, whenever we've talked about this before, what I always try to understand is the physical as it is today. It is mandatory, correct? Like a physical,
regular
you can,
physical.
a regular physical,
Yes.
you cannot
Right,
play
same
sports
thing.
in Flagler schools.
Right.
So what I've been trying to figure out is, how does this fit into that? In that, is this just another piece of what, so if I have to get my eyes checked, my weight checked, you know what I mean, these things checked,
This is just
why?
one more thing, right?
But I guess the question is, why does the state, why are those things important? Why are we safeguarding students around those pieces? And if I can better understand why that, then I think that will help me to understand then why this other step, why should that be mandatory without the opt-out? I don't know if that makes sense, but that's how I'm trying to understand.
Like you're saying, no parent opt-out.
Well, I think that's what Dr. Conklin is saying, is if we think about this as part of just an annual, children do not have to play sports.
Part of the process.
Right. So, I mean, this is not like in order to go to school, it's like in order to play sports, this is a requirement to play sports for Flagler schools. So do you know by any chance, the sports physicals as they are now, I think it's just general, they check your
It's
eyes.
everything.
County.
It's everything.
Yeah.
It's a whole system.
But they don't mandate an EKG. And there's times I've said to a parent, look, I'd like to do an EKG on this child. And they're like, yeah, sure, But I do think it needs to be up to the parent that they have that choice whether or not they want to do that.
Well, I
And
maintain,
Christy, the only reason I would disagree with you, and I understand, but at the end of the day, the liability is going to be on us. I mean, I hate to bring it, to bring it down to that point, but a parent can say, it's parent choice, and I can choose to not have an EKG done for my child. Well, we can choose to not allow them to play sports then, because that is ultimately a major liability. Ultimately, there's not a price you can put on saving a child's head, but it also comes down to a lot, major liability to the school district.
Well, I still maintain my position from the beginning is, number one, I encourage every parent to take advantage of the screening that is provided on campus with our partnership with Advent Health. But I promised voters that I would not vote for a mandate down here at the local level, and the state has not handed it down. And so, you know, the Florida high school.
You have to, I'm sorry, but then you have to say, we don't have to mandate high school physicals.
We do.
Well, no, we do. That's my point, Dr. Conklin.
Florida statute says
is that
we do.
I'm saying at the local level, for us to place a mandate, this program is utilized, the services that are provided are highly utilized by the parents already. The program is working.
Right.
Why
would we not? Why would we not mandate it?
Because we're not the parent. Let the parent decide that. And see, this is the
we
slippery
are
slope of mandates,
responsible.
because this conversation itself, let me finish, Dr. Conklin. As
Sure,
you've
I'm
referred to it as a mandate, when you have some board members who say, well, I'm okay with it for 1 year with an opt-out, right? Okay, so if that's the way it goes, but now we have this mandate in place. Well, then another board comes by and says, you know what? I think it's different. Now let's take away that opt-out. It's a slippery slope when you start putting mandates here at the local level that are not handed down by the state. And that is my concern here, is that, and that is the reason why, and the mere fact that there is a high participation. I believe it's over 80% of students are getting the.
How many athletes do we have?
Just under 1,000.
Yeah, but it could be one student that you're missed. And I understand what you're saying about the mandates from the state versus a mandate from a local level. But what I would say to you is that we are charged to make those kind of mandates on a local level. And ultimately, we are financially also responsible for this district. It puts a major liability in our hands.
I'd like to get a legal opinion on that one
I think
before we say it is an absolute legal liability. We would need to get a legal opinion on that.
If we don't do the research, and if you think that there's any kids, parents, whose child dropped dead on a field, did not sue that school district, I don't care what kind of waiver they signed. It's irrelevant.
Well, they likely would sue us either way then, based on that logic. So essentially.
No, because you would have the protection of having the EKGs done. If you mandate it, you are protecting the children on the field, period. If parents want to choose not to get the EKG, then their children can't play sports in Flagler County. It's not just a health issue, but a liability issue.
I'm just making it known here that I believe the parents have the right to decide on these type of things. And this is just one of many that could come down the line behind it. And again, once you have a mandate, then other boards down the line could change those mandates and put more restrictive policies in place. So I'm just going to leave it there. I've said my piece.
Can I just ask a follow-up question on the litigation standpoint? Tommy, the only thing that's coming to my mind is cheerleading, and as far as student athletes, we keep kind of talking about this student having a heart episode. Is there a sport that I'm not thinking of where another student could be in harm's way? The only thing I could think of is like the cheerleading, right? Like I'm a student and I'm holding another student, like 3 students up in the air. That would be the only thing on this kind of line of questioning is safeguarding. Would we need to safeguard other students in the mix?
So we do have coverage. It's anything over $20,000. But we do have our students. The parents have an opportunity to purchase voluntary student accident insurance.
I'm asking, are there any sports, are there any sports other than like cheerleading where if I'm on the football field, the basketball court, the swimming pool, where I could have an episode and it would put another student at risk? I can't think of anything other than cheerleading.
I think there are risks with any sport. It's just the risk is just going to look different, right? If I'm holding up a student, that's going to have a great risk. But I can think of risks
Spotting and weightlifting.
Yeah,
There's one.
weightlifting, if I'm spotting
Spotting,
someone, you know.
weightlifting
it-
is
That's a good
yeah.
one. Yeah.
You know,
I think every sport looks different and
I
what that
think,
risk
to me,
looks like.
that would be part, I would want to enter that as part of this conversation of, because I agree with Will in a lot of ways about, really liking the opt-out. Because I have a daughter, I'm responsible for her well-being, my husband and I make decisions about her and her health. But if we enter in risk to another student, should somebody with a heart defect, now there's risk with weightlifting, with whatever, to me then that is, now you're talking about somebody else's child who I don't have the right to make decisions for. So that was just something to think about.
So, I want to make sure that we have clear direction on, because this will be coming to you for a vote, and I don't want to put you in a situation where you're showing direction that you're going. But right now, what will come before you will be two different options. One, keep it as is, and the second option would be to have it require once in the 4 years with an opt-out in. Those are the two options that I hear you guys leaning towards, and then then you would have to take a vote on which direction you as a board you're going.
So I'm hearing there's potential for conversation around three
Okay.
options.
All
What
right.
I'm hearing is one time with parent opt-out, one time mandatory, and no change, is what I'm hearing in the conversation as three different
Okay.
options that have not been totally ruled out yet.
I mean, I'll just say, I support the EKGs annually, but I'm not going to mandate anything because, like Will said, it becomes a slippery slope of starting to mandate lots of other things.
If we leave it as it is right now, it still is encouraged, it's advertised, we have access to no-cost screenings. We already have high participation in this here. So what we have now is working. So the other, so I guess what Superintendent Moore is looking for is, she's saying, should we bring this down before it comes before us for a vote? Can we narrow it down to two options so that they can bring that before us for a vote?
And we can bring three if that's what you want. It will need to, we'll just have to make sure.
Voted on.
Right.
Yes, yeah, we'll see. So we can, if those are the three that we have narrowed it down to, we can bring those three before you. So we have one is no change at all, one time with an opt-out, and then the third one would be for it to be one time with no opt-out.
that would be
Okay,
mandatory.
good.
And,
I just have a question, Tommy. What's the plan for the people who don't get to these physicals? So they go to their, yeah, they don't make
with
sports.
the admin health.
Yeah, so I
Um,
mean, so they have opportunity to get the
Right, so
EKG for
that
the
would
new
be us
athlete?
working, yeah, absolutely. So that would be us working with Advent Health on the initiative that obviously they came and presented back in May. And what does that look like? So they did, remember if you said, they were at the table, they were talking about potentially training the athletic trainers with the equipment, so the equipment would be on site. They could do the test, and then a doctor would then read the test. So it's not like the athletic trainer is reading the test, but it's potentially that Advent Health would be willing to provide us the equipment that our athletic trainers would do the test. But if they miss an athletic physical, they would go to their primary doctor. They go to urgent care, medical.
Right, but I mean, they wouldn't necessarily be able to get an EKG at their primary. They would have to have, that would be an additional expense.
Yeah, so-
I'm trying to figure out what's the easiest, if the athletic trainer can do the EKG and then get to their doctor, that would make sense.
Yeah, so
But who's going to supply the equipment
Well,
that
that's
Advent
the-
Health
yeah.
would?
And
So
that
we
in
would
itself
talk with
might
Advent.
present other liability.
Well, it
but
could.
I get where you're going with that. We don't want to put barriers in front of our students to play sports.
There are families that might not make the physical at here, and then they're going to scuffle to get another physical, but now they also have to get an EKG at least once. You know,
Yeah, we can
that's-
definitely work, I've been helping those offer
There has to be
free
options.
screening nights. I think they offer 3 down in Volusia, so they offer it to Volusia students, but I can talk to Mr. Nason and see if a student misses in May,
Could they
would they
go
be able to
somewhere
go
to
in
get it
April,
done?
something.
Yeah.
So
And they
I-
have not indicated that their offer to provide the equipment and the training to the athletic directors,
Trainers.
or, I'm sorry, the
Athletic trainers.
athletic trainers, thank you, has changed. They have not indicated that they are not still committed to doing that work.
Okay.
So-
Because that means that's a difference. And I do believe eventually that Florida high school athletics will come down with the mandate if they see it, if they can afford it, but it's the rural counties that they're worried about financially. So it's out there, but we just have to figure out what's best for here.
So I guess the next step here is to give direction. Do we want to, did we say, we already have a policy in place, so are we ready to make this vote? Have we workshopped this enough? Have we had enough discussion? One, and if we have, then do we want to bring 1, 2, 3, or 4 options to vote on? So let's just get some direction for the superintendent here so we can move this on forward. If we're going to bring it for the vote, I'll just say the one, I've made it clear, the one that I'd support is just to stay with the policy we have. So I'll let the other board chime in on what else.
And I'll just put it on the table. It's obvious, respectfully, we just have different opinions on it. I feel very strongly, I would like to see a vote go forward at least on the mandated EKG.
One-time
Once a
mandated.
year. One time.
One
So,
time.
and again, I'm not Mr. Quick, I'll let Mr. Quick do his part. I don't want you to individually start, letting us know where you're going. We just need to know, are you ready we're gonna either send this to a vote, or if you need more information, you would have to let us know. We have nothing else to add. However, if you wanted us to bring another partner or bring back an event, that will be on you guys. If not, this is going to a vote with those 3 options.
My preference is
Got
the
it.
3 options in that Dr. Conklin has sounded interested in pursuing mandated.
That was
Chair
in the
Furry.
that was in the 3 options.
And then I think that it's still, as let's call it maybe a compromise, the one time with the parent opt-out, feels like that should be in the mix, so I would support bringing all
So
3.
unless you need more information presented to this board, this will move forward to your standard board meeting. It will go forward with 3 options. One option is to remain the same. The second option is one time with an opt-out, and the third option will be one time with no opt-out. And then we will bring that before you, and you guys will issue a vote, and then we will move forward with making sure that the policy is advertised, and then we'll go forward with next steps.
All right,
Thanks.
thank you,
Thank you,
Tom.
Thanks, Tommy.
Okay, so how we have a time certain for,
Maybe we recess this,
Yeah, and
so
then-
that people can have a moment.
okay. We have another meeting that we
It's
have to
gonna be
hold.
here.
Oh, we're going to hold it in here?
Yes.
Okay, great. So we're going to take a quick, a necessary recess and we adjourn when time is. Okay, so